50% of people say that they are shy. So that's a lot of people, struggling with maybe being themselves or holding themselves back. Actually, we're not fixed. We are changing all the time. We can do things to help ourselves, even if you are experiencing anxiety at the moment.
You see clients in your clinic all the time. Are there some common themes that you're seeing these days?
Yeah, so I see a lot of people with general anxiety, so worrying about everything, feeling like they can't switch off, feeling like they're on high alert a lot of the time. I see quite a lot of people for social anxiety, so people that really hold themselves back in social situations or avoid social situations completely because they're so afraid of usually what other people think and being judged. I see people with panic attacks. Public speaking is another big one that I see people for. And again, that's just another manifestation of anxiety and fearing judgment, really. And I started to notice when I was researching the book how many other people also felt the same as I did. So thoughts of not being good enough, finding it hard to speak in public or having social anxiety, not having the confidence to go after things. So that was definitely my story for a long time. And I found that a lot of people experience the same, even though it can often feel as though when we're really struggling with something that we're the only one that feels like that. And then, it's been a big relief for me personally to sort of realise that other people feel the same way. And I found that often, people come up to me and say, it's like you've read my mind or you've looked inside my brain and written down what was inside my brain. So it's a thing that a lot of people struggle with. I think often we look at people and think that they're really confident and they've got it all figured out and they were potentially just born confident. That's just the way they are. And we tell ourselves that we are not confident and we're not good enough and we could never do those things. And some examples are people like Adele, who has talked about how she sometimes is sick before she does a performance.
Wow.
And there's an inspirational speaker called Mel Robbins who, during her TED Talk, she was having a panic attack, she said, the whole time, even though she seems really calm and confident when she's actually speaking. And actually what we're seeing often is someone being courageous. Inside they're doubting themselves, they're experiencing fear, they're maybe feeling like an imposter. So we're seeing that their courage, not necessarily their confidence. And I think just knowing that almost gives us a bit of permission to know that we can feel afraid and still do things and we can still give things a try, even though we don't have, rock solid confidence to begin with.
That really is, I think in some ways, quite inspiring for people and quite reassuring for people. Confidence is a skill that you can learn. And I think that is revolutionary for some people.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's quite empowering to think that, to know that even if you are someone who is shy, 50% of people say that they are shy. So that's a lot of people, struggling with maybe being themselves or holding themselves back. And to know that actually we're not fixed. We are changing all the time. We can do things to help ourselves, even if you are experiencing anxiety at the moment. You're not going to feel like that forever. No feelings stay the same the whole time. And so there are lots of things that we can do to learn to accept ourselves more, to perhaps go outside of our comfort zones to grow our confidence. Because I found that, and this was definitely a pattern for me in the past, I would just avoid anything that I was afraid of or avoid anything that made me nervous or anxious. I had a lot of social anxiety in the past and I would just not go to parties. I wouldn't go to a networking event. That was like my worst nightmare, the thought of having to meet strangers or something. And little by little, I started to challenge myself and started to say, right, I'm going to go to this event. I'm going to stay for 5 minutes. I'm going to talk to one person and then I can leave. And in doing that, what happens is I started to retrain my nervous system and teach myself that I could survive those situations. And that's how we grow our confidence. That's one way we can grow our confidence anyway, by slowly challenging ourselves.
So in some ways it's almost like a muscle that you're working out and you're just progressively lifting a heavier weight maybe as you're going through. And I don't know, is that a reasonable analogy?
Yes, yeah, that's a great way of describing it. Yeah, I think Yeah, your nervous system learns that you're not going to die if you go into that situation. Because I think at some level, when we're in fight or flight, it is because we're perceiving, or our nervous system is perceiving, that there's a threat. And so without all that adrenaline is being created. And then when we go to the networking event and we survive, and actually we learn it's not so bad, and your body starts to be retrained in that way.
Why is striving to be perfect so problematic for us?
Well, if we're striving for perfection, we're striving for something that is actually impossible, because perfection is something that is just an opinion, and everyone in the world has a different opinion of what is perfect. If you were trying to create the perfect podcast, everyone in the world has a different idea of that, and you're not going to please everyone. And also what happens when we have that perfectionist mindset is we constantly move the goalposts. So once we've got one job, we're looking at the next one. How can we get the next promotion? Once we've, sold a certain amount of books, we still want to go to the next thing. So we're never satisfied, because we've got that mindset of always pushing, always pressuring, never feeling good enough. It actually comes down to not feeling good enough. And if we don't feel good enough on ourselves, no external thing is going to really satisfy that. And I think it can be very toxic. We often think of perfectionism as being kind of a good thing. And obviously, in some situations, you'd want people to be perfectionists, like your surgeon or something. But in a lot of cases, it's not needed, and actually just causes us to worry and stress and actually sometimes not take action because we're worried that we're going to fail.
And we do wait for perfection too much, don't we? And when all we're looking for is progress.
Yeah, so just focus on it being good enough. Be kind to yourself. Know that you're going to fail at times and progress is going to happen. And I think at some point we do just need to try to let go. And actually, often things feel perfect when we accept them. If we can have that attitude of just being more accepting and embracing things as they are, things start to feel as we imagine they would when they're perfect. We get that sense of contentment and that sense of satisfaction. So I think it's about, trying to cultivate some more acceptance.
How can people who are listening to this and who recognise some of the tendencies we're talking about say, I'd love to change that. I would love to be more accepting of myself, but I find it hard. What can they do?
Yeah, so many of us find it really hard to accept compliments or even think about ourselves in a positive way. And I think a really key first step is to start to train yourself to think of yourself in more positive ways. We are often in a pattern of always beating ourselves up, or in terms of negativity bias, which is just the way our brains are wired, we naturally look for the negatives in things or the criticisms because it was a survival mechanism in the past. But we can counteract that by thinking about what were 3 things that you appreciated about yourself today. What did you do well today? What do you like about yourself today? Did you overcome a challenge? Did you help someone? Did you complete a project? And getting into that habit of every day thinking of 3 things that you can appreciate about yourself starts to train your mind to look for more things to appreciate about yourself. And you eventually start to think of yourself in a more positive way. And this can grow your self-esteem, your confidence. You can be kinder to yourself as a result.
Would you recommend people just do this in their head or actually start writing this down?
I think there is something about writing it down that seems more solid and it seems more concrete. So writing it down if you can, but even if sometimes I do this in bed. I get into bed at night and I just think about the day and I was like, what were 3 things that I appreciate about myself today? Just doing it in that moment before going to sleep.
Yeah, it's an act of self-love, isn't it? It's again, even if you've had the crappiest day and everything went wrong, or you perceive everything to have gone wrong and be stressed and you're running late, there probably are 2 or 3 things that you're quite proud of about how you handled yourself or what you did, and it is. What strikes me is that these are quite simple things that people can do. They're not that tricky, right? Chloe, you shared a really nice story in the book where I don't know if it's when you were starting off as a therapist or not, but you wanted to do some group sessions. And I wonder if you could just tell that story, because I think it's quite inspiring for people. And just A, what happened, but B, how you processed it and what you learnt from that experience.
Yeah, definitely. So when I'd first started as a therapist, I decided to do my first event, and I was really excited about it and very, very nervous. And I'd prepared a lot for it. I'd learned the script off by heart. I'd put up posters in local cafes and contacted clients and put quite a lot of effort into trying to organise it. And when I did the event, I got a grand total of one person turning up, and I was completely devastated. I spent the kind of the next hour after the workshop really beating myself up, thinking, I'm a terrible therapist. This is a sign that I should just quit and never try to do an event again. And catastrophizing and thinking that this meant all these things about me, that I was, not good at what I was doing. And after kind of a certain period of beating myself up, I had a bit of a word with myself, and I decided to do some writing about what I was thinking. And I wrote down some of those thoughts that I was having and started to realize how ridiculous they sounded written down. And I started to ask myself, right, what can I learn from this experience? What can I do differently next time that will help it to, be more successful in terms of people turning up? It's such a common thing how we quote unquote fail at something, and we make it mean a load of things about us, that we're not good enough. And quite often we give up if we beat ourselves up about something. And if we can be kind to ourselves, and if we can think about, what am I learning from this situation? How can I use this as information to help me to get better next time? Then we're much more able to try again and to use that as a valuable learning experience.
I think you used journaling, didn't you, as part of your way of processing this?
Yes. So just getting pen and paper, writing down what was on my mind, a stream of consciousness. And, once we got it written down, we see it in a different perspective, I think, of some of the things that we think and some of the things that we tell ourselves. And we can start to, hopefully take it a bit less seriously, or start to change that into something a bit more positive when it's written down.
I've mentioned journaling quite a bit on this podcast. And one of my mates actually phoned me up last week and he said, "Hey mate, you talk about journaling a lot. What is journaling? What are you actually doing when you journal? Are you thinking about it? Are you just writing anything that comes down into your head?" So, as a therapist, if someone comes into you and you recommend journaling, how do you break it down for them in terms of what they should be doing?
Yeah, so I often recommend that my clients get a notepad, and it could be at any time of day that works for them. Often people do it in the morning because it's a nice way to start your day. Some people do it last thing at night to help them to unwind before bed. But you just write a stream of consciousness. So whatever you're worried about, whatever's on your mind, whatever you've got on that day. And what happens is it helps us to put our feelings into words. And there's something very powerful about doing that, because when we're able to kind of label our emotions and, really kind of narrativize the thoughts and feelings, we start to feel more in control of them. We start to process them more easily. And it's not just a jumble in our heads anymore and all these anxious kind of thoughts and worries. It's out and it's down on paper, and we can start to process it. So just writing a stream of consciousness, I think, is a great step.
Yeah, I think it's a great tip, and I think it is deceptively powerful. Journaling really does move the needle, I think, in the way you feel about yourself, the way you feel about people around you, your life. I'm a huge fan of journaling. I think people should definitely give this a go. Really hope you enjoyed that conversation. Please do think about one thing that you can take and apply into your life. Inspiration is not enough. You need to take action. If you did enjoy that, please do press subscribe, hit that notification bell, and why not check out this conversation that I picked out that acts as the perfect follow-up.